Yo, what's up, YouTube? My name's RO, and this is my affirmation video. And from the book, 3 Feet from Gold through the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I copied the book here in my own journal as my own affirmations because I'm the author of my own life. And right now we're on chapter 9, goal driven. And you can see all my other videos. I have a ton. I'm a library, so yeah, you can see that. You can see what I talk about. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and continue on with what we were talking about. Chapter 9, goal driven. I think I said gold again. Goal driven, chapter 9, 3 feet from gold. Okay, we got it. I hope you're listening. When Greg returned home, he went straight to work, not to his regular place of employment, but to work on himself. He realized that what Don Green had shared with him was true. Napoleon Hill said, "There is far more gold." I did that, yeah. Far more gold harvested from the minds of great people than can be ever unearthed from the soil. Greg had now become a prospector in his own right and wanted more gold. He knew that his own financial well-being might be placed in jeopardy, but the decision was made. He would take action by continuing his interviewing business of leaders and cover more shiny nuggets of wisdom. Let me do it faster. He would need to seek association with the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help him going into access of notable personalities. One more time. Hey, wait a minute, Greg said to himself. His memory went back on the first note Buckland had written him, which asked him which he could do with the things he learned. Many received good advice, yet few profit from it. I think that's a blooper. Few profit from it, will you? Instantly, he understood that he had been set up from the beginning on this new path towards success. In the time that he had gone by since he had picked up the wrong jacket, Greg's life had been almost completely transformed. Completely transformed, completely transformed, completely transformed, completely transformed. With this new aha moment, there appeared to be more fulfilling destiny awaiting him. He was going to stop there. He wasn't going to stop 3 feet from gold. Instead, he was going to transfer his drilling operation to uncover a new vein of gold for himself. For himself, for himself, for himself. Was that good enough? What about other people in his life? Family, friends, the woman he loved, the woman he loved, the woman he loved, those in need. He realized he must lead by, example, and apply what he had learned. One of the subtle messages on the wall that was seeping through was that successful people were rarely selfish people. Could this be rule? He made that decision, recognizing that his attention and passions were evolving from his marketing company and that he wanted to focus on his new vision. He decided to offer the business to his employees. While he spoke to them that day, they jumped out and shared ownership, but we're also quiet, surprised the new Greg, and turning the business over. His employees were actually mentoring them and helping them and moving them towards their own passion and goals. He had started giving back just as he promised John Buckland and Don Green he would do. Pass it on, passing on, passing on, passing on. Within a week, the papers were signed and the transfer of the business complete. He scheduled another meeting with Don Green in Virginia. That night before he left the meeting, he placed another phone call on David Engel. This time his message was different because they are full of expectations. We have expectations. His voice mail was brief, to the point, and very brief and very to the point. And from the heart, with my pen. Dave, I just have to say this. I love you. And want the best for you. I want you to help you. But I don't know how to do it. Maya and I are talking again, and she suggested that you might try another rehab or some kind of other program. If when you make the decision that you want to get better, I'll stand behind you and I'm willing to help you for it. Think about it. Call me. He couldn't know how David would react to his offer, but he knew he felt better, as if the weight of the world was being lifted from his shoulders Now it was up to his brother to take action, the same way Greg was doing for himself. The next morning, as he sat before the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, his hands trembled. His nervousness was based not on fear, but on his hope for the meaning of this, for run it back, but on his hope for the meaning and its outcome. As Kathy had suggested, Greg hadn't planned. He had simply moved toward the goal of attaining support of the Hill Foundation. He pleaded his case like a zealous public defender that was quick to present his notepad and its many entries, calling upon each adage. He described it. His encounters with the incredible people he had met so far, in the words of wisdom. The silence following his presentation felt like hours, but it was only seconds before Green responded. Every day I get requests like yours. Every day someone wants to do a project with Napoleon Hill Foundation and write next chapter of the Think and Grow Rich. Why don't you write the next chapter of Think and Grow Rich philosophy? The young man's heart fell. Green said, almost every time someone asks, I have to send them to our attorney for the standard thank you for the interest, yet we cannot accept your invitation at this time. The truth is, you only have so much time in the day. We can only endure so much and effectively support a few select projects. Greg felt the feeling of rejection settle in around him. Then Green smiled. That said, I like your moxie. More than you can highly recommend the mutual friend, Bucky, but know this, and the final piece is for me. Greg just sat there without moving a muscle. You can come back here into my office to ask me in person. You showed up. I like that. Don Green, Don Green, his hands together at his lips as he continued his thought. Tell you what, I'm not going to promise you anything at this time, but I will do one thing for you right now. Greg held his breath. In 1908, Napoleon Hill was not invited to Andrew Carnegie's mansion in Manhattan. Can you imagine his emotions after coming from the humble beginning and then stepping through the doors of a 64-foot mansion? 64 room, 64, way past that. Mansion. What Hill took from that day was more than just a memory. We're getting there. A meeting of such a great man. He also left with a hand-signed recommendation letter from Mr. Carnegie himself that would open many doors for him, doors that Hill could never have gotten through his own. Considering what you want to do, I will write you a similar letter from the foundation. I will let people know that we support your vision and I'm sure it will open up doors for you too. What you do with the letter and those opportunities will be up to you. As Greg thought about it, he realized he was walking in the footsteps of a very great man, Napoleon Hill. Exactly 100 years later, what an incredible opportunity and responsibility. Then we'll see what you come back with. Even though I can't guarantee anything right now, I hope you understand that I do have confidence in you. The eager student promised, Don, you won't be sorry. Green smiled at the young man's enthusiasm. Keep in touch. I would like to hear about your progress in this journey. As the two shook hands in agreement, Green had the inspiration of his own. He called out to his assistant, Anita, can you come here in for a second? A woman appeared in the door and in a deep, beautiful southern accent asked, what may I do for you boys? How may I help you with this charity event I was supposed to attend next month? Sure do, she replied, yes, I can. You can't make that one. We have you booked for a presentation down in Florida that day. Yes, I remember. So would you do me a favor and give Greg here my ticket for the Dinner of Champions so I can attend on behalf and represent the foundation? The next few weeks sped by so quickly that Greg barely had time to attend to the basics of living. Instead, his full attention and activity were dedicated to calling, emailing, and researching contemporary business icons. Even though his bank account dwindled daily, he kept on task. Back when Napoleon Hill had published his original classic, he had interviewed the top business teachers of his era. While the principles he discovered are timeless, the business landscape had changed. However, one thing remained strong as ever: the power of third-party endorsement. And what Greg found was that in some way, almost all the business leaders he contacted attributed to their success to the reading of Think and Grow Rich. I think I did that. You can see it in the videos. That's Think and Grow Rich. But anyways, Think and Grow Rich, they had built, so I wrote that and then talked about it. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and continue on with right where we're at here now. They had built their success on the principles that Napoleon Hill shared from studying the most successful business leaders of the early 20th century. Now Greg had an opportunity to record the stories of the most successful business leaders of the early 21st century. Could his work have the same impact on the next generation? Their project could not be timed any better than this. The economy was teetering on the edge of a disaster. Talk about COVID-19. And he would begin to fall sooner than Greg or anyone else realized. He decided that he would use a recommendation letter in which, the same way that Hill used Carnegie's a century before, he wrote down a goal in his notepad, scheduled 7 meetings with key luminaries. As he started to make his appointments, he quickly discovered something that most people would not believe. They would not believe. The most successful people seem to be most available. In nearly every instance, the people seem to be most available at the top of their field were happy to pass on their knowledge. To be waiting to the willing students, to a willing, he summarized in his notepad, the most successful people are the most accessible people. The most successful people want to teach others how to become successful. It seemed to be the people in the middle struggling to find their voice and to create their own identity in a hyper-competitive atmosphere and had no time to help anyone else. They seemed to be controlled by their ego, wealth, and fancy titles. They hadn't discovered who they were quite yet. They reminded Greg of the saying that goes, ego stands for the edging got out. These are the people that you could use the success equation the most, but the people who you had met through Mr. Buckland were so different from the people he used the association with. They were incredibly successful and generous with their time and desire to help others. They were confident, but not to the point of being arrogant. Their hearts were still bigger than their status. Not to the point of being. Finding his way to his assigned table of the Dinner of Champions, Greg could hardly control his excitement. Seated right before him was one of the all-time favorite sports idols. This was a man who had crushed many others on purpose. And yet in person, he was a true gentle giant. It was the only one and only, Evander Holyfield, the only boxer to win heavyweight championship 4 times. Greg's slim frame seemed even smaller as he sat down next to this impressive physical specimen of a man. While Holyfield's physique dominated the room, his mere presence and gentle spirit caused people to turn and smile. Without waiting for a formal introduction, Greg, in his usual driven manner, said, "Okay, Evander, I've got to know you real well. What makes you better than the rest of your competition?" Holyfield could have dismissed this stranger, but instead offered immediate reply, but instead offered immediate reply. A hyper, a hyper, a higher standard than anyone else. His immediate reply was offered by a higher standard than anyone else. A higher standard than anyone else. Please explain, said Greg, listening intently. It's simple, really. If you have a car and will not tolerate being dirty or running badly, you will have a better car than your neighbor. If you see a home where your wife will not accept a husband coming home drunk or the kids being a mess, she will have a better family dynamic, right? Greg pulled out his notepad and pen, ready to write. The same applies to sports. I always worked out early, stayed late, so much that we would even come up with new ways to exercise that no one else had ever thought of. We did this because we had a higher standard than anyone else in the ring, a standard of excellence, we called it, and that standard is what I believe allow me to win a medal of the Olympics with all the championship belts. In the pad, Greg wrote, set the highest standards than he asked, but didn't it hurt getting hit all the time? Holyfield looked up, and winked. Look at this face. And then he added, he didn't get hit that much. It's like this. If you focus on the blows you're receiving, the only place you'll end up is on your back. I never put that much attention on the damage I was getting. I only focused on the damage I was inflicting. Greg's eyes widened as he asked, are you saying you never felt the punches? Sure, I felt them, Holyfield said, but I never lost my focus on the job at hand. That was to hit my opponent back even harder. The same applies to life in general. So many people focus on the hits coming their way. They watch the news that tells them how bad things are. They listen to their friends or their family and whoever else is talking in their ear about how unhappy life is. In other words, they focus on how many blows they are taking when in fact they should change their attention towards fighting back and staying on their toes. As the great heavyweight began eating his meal, Greg wrote, stay on your toes. Focus on the job at hand. This was amazing. He had not expected such wisdom from an athlete. Then it came to him. Holyfield was far more than a boxer. He was a fighter. And that was the difference. He was defined not by his career, but by his achievements. Holyfield paused and pointed his fork at Greg. You know the funny thing? When the final bell rings and they raise your hand and the crowd goes wild, whether it's a boxing match or any success in life, you never feel or remember the blows. You only feel the victory. Greg added that to his notepad. You never feel or remember the blows. You only feel the victory. As Greg sat there listening to this incredible champion, he realized hearing some of the advice he had just received from Drew O'Cathy just as the different perspective. There was electricity in the room. Greg felt himself to be a part of it. Totally charged up. Holyfield added to his final observation. You want to know something else? The other guy, the one in the losing locker room, he's going to feel each and every bruise he took along the way for years, only be able to tell the stories of how he almost made it. Looking at Greg dead in the eye, Holyfield finished his thought with a knockout punch. I don't know about you, but all I want is to be a champion. It was a classic stand-up and cheer moment Greg had never felt so stirred up inside. That was a chapter from the book 3 Feet from Gold through the Napoleon Hill Foundation. My name is R.O. This is my affirmation video. I'm just repeating it to the camera to hear my own voice. I wrote it here. This is chapter 9, Goal Driven. I want to thank the Napoleon Hill Foundation for putting together such a good book for me to copy into my brain. But anyways, my name's R.O. I appreciate you. I hope you're listening close. Use your imagination. That's all that matters. Please start writing. could change your life. But anyways, I'll talk to you later.